The old castle stood atop a hill, its stone walls and towers reaching towards the sky. It had been abandoned for years, its halls and corridors now home to the ghosts and spirits of those who had died there centuries ago. Many people avoided the castle, claiming that it was cursed and that anyone who entered its walls would never return. But for a group of adventurous teenagers, the castle was the perfect place for a night of exploration and thrills. They arrived just as the sun began to set, eager to uncover the secrets of the haunted castle. As they crept through the castle's dusty halls, they heard strange whispers and eerie moans that seemed to come from nowhere. But they shrugged it off, thinking that it was just their imagination playing tricks on them. It wasn't until they reached the castle's grand hall that things started to get really scary. In the center of the hall was a giant suit of armor, and as they approached, they saw that the armor was moving on its own. The suit of armor creaked and groaned as it stood up, towering over the teenagers with its metal frame. Suddenly it swung its sword, and the teenagers ran for cover, hiding behind the castle's crumbling walls. As they caught their breath, they realized that they were being followed. They heard the clanging of metal on stone, and they knew that the suit of armor was still on their trail. They ran through the castle's dark corridors, trying to find a way out, but everywhere they turned, they were met with dead ends and locked doors. It seemed as though the castle was determined to keep them trapped within its walls. As the night wore on, the teenagers grew more and more terrified. They knew that they were being stalked by the suit of armor, and they could hear the ghostly laughter of the castle's other inhabitants echoing through the halls. Eventually, they stumbled upon a hidden chamber. The room was filled with strange symbols and artifacts that looked like they were straight out of a horror movie. The air was thick with the scent of burning candles, and the walls were covered in strange writing that they couldn't decipher. As they looked around the room, they heard a sound behind them. They turned to see the suit of armor standing in the doorway, its sword raised high. They had nowhere to run. But then something strange happened. The suit of armor seemed to shrink, and its metal plates clanged to the ground. In its place stood a figure wrapped in tattered robes, its face obscured by a hood. The figure began to chant in a language that the teenagers couldn't understand. Suddenly, the walls of the chamber began to shake, and the floor trembled beneath their feet. And then, as quickly as it had begun, it was over. The figure disappeared into the shadows, and the castle fell silent once again. The teenagers stumbled out of the castle, their hearts pounding in their chests. They looked back at the castle, now bathed in the warm glow of the sun, and they knew that they had narrowly escaped its cursed walls. But they also knew that they would never forget the terror of their night in the haunted castle, and they would never be the same again. Deep within the heart of a remote forest stood a towering ancient castle that had long been rumored to be haunted. The locals whispered of strange sightings and eerie sounds emanating from the castle, warning travelers to steer clear of the forbidding structure. Despite the legends, one group of adventurers dared to enter the castle's shadowy halls. The friends had been searching for a lost artifact rumored to be hidden somewhere within the castle's depths. As they ventured deeper into the castle, they felt a growing sense of unease. Strange shadows seemed to flicker and move just out of sight, and the faint sound of whispers echoed through the halls. As they entered a vast, dimly lit chamber, the friends realized they were not alone. A figure stood before them, cloaked in shadow and emanating an aura of malevolence. It was the Demon King who had long been rumored to rule over the haunted castle. The friends tried to back away, but the Demon King's hypnotic gaze held them rooted in place. They were transfixed as he spoke, his voice like a cold, dark wind whispering across their skin. The Demon King told them of his plans to claim the artifact they sought as his own. He had been searching for it for centuries, and he would not allow a group of mere mortals to take it from him. The friends knew they had to escape, but the Demon King's power was too great. They were trapped, surrounded by his dark magic and unable to move. Suddenly, one of the friends broke free from the Demon King's spell. He lunged forward, grabbing the artifact and pulling it away from the Demon King's grasp. But the Demon King was not so easily defeated. His eyes blazed with fury, and he summoned all his dark power to crush the intruders. The friends ran through the castle's twisting corridors, pursued by the Demon King's relentless fury. His power grew with each passing moment, and it seemed as though there was no escape. Just when all hope seemed lost, the friends stumbled upon a hidden room deep within the castle's bowels. The walls were covered in strange markings and symbols, and a single candle flickered in the corner. As they caught their breath, they realized that they had stumbled upon a long-forgotten ritual that could banish the Demon King once and for all. With trembling hands, they began to recite the words of the ritual. The air around them grew heavy with power, and the Demon King's rage filled the room. But the friends stood firm, their voices rising in strength and conviction. And with a final burst of energy, they unleashed the power of the ritual upon the Demon King. The Demon King let out a deafening scream, his power fading away into the darkness. And with a final burst of light, he was gone, banished back to the shadows from which he had emerged. The friends emerged from the haunted castle, shaken but victorious. They knew that they had been lucky to survive their encounter with the Demon King, and they vowed never to return to the castle again. But they also knew that they had accomplished what they had set out to do, and they had saved the world from the dark power that had threatened to consume it. Once upon a time, a young girl named Emily was traveling through Europe with her parents when they stumbled upon an ancient, foreboding castle. They were intrigued by the castle's history and decided to take a tour. As they explored the castle, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. There was a heaviness to the air, and she could hear whispers echoing through the halls. Suddenly, Emily found herself separated from her parents. She searched the castle, but they were nowhere to be found. And when she tried to leave, she discovered that all the doors were locked. The whispers grew louder, and strange shadows seemed to flicker and move just out of sight. She heard footsteps echoing through the halls and turned to see a figure moving towards her. It was an old man, dressed in a tattered cloak and carrying a lantern. The old man led Emily to a small room deep within the castle, where he told her of a dark secret. The castle was haunted by the ghosts of its former inhabitants, who were trapped there for eternity. Emily begged the old man to help her escape, but he simply shook his head. He told her that she was now one of them, trapped in the haunted castle forever. Emily tried to run, but the old man's words rang in her ears. She was one of them now, and there was no escape. As the days turned into weeks, Emily's sanity began to slip away. She could hear the whispers of the ghosts all around her, and strange visions filled her mind. One night, Emily was awakened by a strange sound. She sat up in her bed, her heart racing. She could hear footsteps moving through the castle's halls, getting closer and closer. Suddenly, the door to her room creaked open. Emily sat frozen with fear as a ghostly figure emerged from the darkness. It was a young girl, her face twisted in agony. The ghostly girl floated towards Emily, her arms outstretched. Emily tried to run, but her legs were rooted to the spot. The ghostly girl reached out and touched Emily's forehead, and everything went black. When Emily awoke, she found herself back in her own bed, her parents at her side. They had been searching for her for days and had finally found her in a locked room deep within the castle. Emily never spoke of her time in the haunted castle, but she could never shake the feeling that she had left a part of herself behind. She knew that the ghosts still haunted the castle, and that she would never be truly free from their grasp.